welcome everybody. This session is about using the carbon footprint of sports facilities to advocate for sustainable mountain bike facilities. Fredric is going to tell you all about this more in detail. Fredric has 10 years in mountain bike trail development. He's certified trail rater with the International Trail Rating System, works with the Swedish cycling advocacy group Cykelfrämjandet.
Cykelfrämjandet, yeah, remember that.
You'll see lots about this, and is a member of the IMBA Europe board. So I'll leave it to Fredric. If you have questions that come into your head during the talk, you can write them as a comment in the app, but we'll also have a discussion at the end.
So thanks for having me. First, we said if it's the real cost of trail, that is not actually true, because that would be like a professional trail builder doing calculation of the cost. That's not what this session is about. It's more about bringing on some data and facts of how we can look on trails in comparison to other sport facilities in a sort of an advocacy tool. So you just don't get to this point. We're not going to do a lot of calculation on how you build trails, because there are so many ways to do it, and you simply can't do that in a session in 30 minutes. So most of this presentation is about this report that we had made for a year ago about. It was entirely in Swedish, and the name is sort of, I have translated it to sustainable mountain biking. It's not entirely right. We couldn't really fit in the right Swedish words. And everything in this presentation is translated from Swedish into English, and some of the numbers are sort of a wiggle room from translation from Swedish kronas into euros. So I just made the numbers understandable and not as detailed. And I think it's also fair to mention that we didn't write the report ourselves. There was a company that was called Ecoloop. They're a group of engineers, and they had like a fixed model how they look at different sport facilities that they have used for this report. And unfortunately, they couldn't be here with us. It was simply too expensive to fly into engineers to do this presentation. So therefore, we're going to look at all the outcomes of this report, of course, but I'm going to talk a little bit more about how we as an advocacy organization have worked to make this report happen, and how we have used it, and how we can see that the numbers that comes out from this report really can help us do good advocacy for mountain bike trails in Sweden. Properly introduced from Manan, me. Here, find me the most happy when I'm out digging and building trails, whether it's professionally or as a volunteer, don't mind. Actually, I think I enjoy building trails more than riding them, which could be a sort of odd thing, but that's the way it is. And I've been doing so in my own firm for almost 10 years now, and then I have been collaborating and been hiring from different organizations. And for the last 3 years, I've been hired from the Swedish advocacy organization Cykelfrämjandet as a trail expert. So I have provided Swedish trail groups with trail building schools, and I've done a lot of reports on how to build sustainable trails, not only within mountain biking, but also for hiking trails. We tried to get closer to the hiking community. We saw there are a lot of similarities, and a lot of the stewardship and organization within hiking trails doesn't have the appropriate knowledge when it comes to sustainable trails. So we thought that was a great idea to work closer to them and understand how hiking trails can be so popular and be so favored in the debate and so well funded when mountain bikes are not. So it was these 3 years I've worked really close to the hiking organizations in Sweden, and sooner you will understand why. So more or less the aim of this study was we just want comparable data for mountain bike trails towards other sport facilities. And that was an idea that was raised out of pure envy from my side, to be fair. I'm going to come back to that. But in this case, envy led to something good. So this report is made with some partners from us. Cykelfrämjandet, we were like taking the initiative and took the biggest part of the funding of it. But we were also supported by an organization that is called Friluftsfrämjandet, which is the biggest outdoor organization in Sweden. They have about 100,000 members, and they're actually the biggest mountain bike organization as well. I think they have about 500 guides and bike instructors, and are having loads of people out in groups, and there's strong advocacy for the right to roam with the bikes. And then we had some support from some regional organizations. Skåne is a region, and Västkuststift and Bergslagen Cycling, that is like regions that actually have people hired that works with mountain biking. And together with this organization, we sort of covered 70 of 280 municipalities in Sweden, because these are sort of like the umbrella organizations to help municipalities with mountain biking. So having them aboard, not just with the funding, but with the reach of this report, was super important for us. So first, Cykelfrämjandet is actually by heart not a mountain biking organization. It's cycling, and it's been around for almost 100 years, which means it started on gravel roads and trails, and then it went into commuting and sort of like touristic perspective. And I guess most of you know Hans Stoops. He initiated Cykelfrämjandet to work with mountain biking 10 years ago, and had done a tremendous job bringing mountain biking into this organization. But still, I need to say Cykelfrämjandet by heart is commuting. And I think the most important thing we do in the organization is teaching people to ride bikes within the cities. So that's the biggest program that we run, is to help women learn to ride a bike, to make them be able to commute within the society and not getting stuck up in the suburbs, which is a really great project, which I strongly feel about. But just to know, so we're about 6,000 members, and I would say maybe 100 of them would say they were mountain bikers. So we're really not having the mountain bikers with us, but we're still doing a lot of advocacy work on the behalf of them. And doing so, it's me, and it's my colleague Hugo, who unfortunately isn't here with us in this conference. So where I am sort of the trail expert, the nerd, trying to teach people how to build trails and make them sustainable, Hugo is like, he's the guy out there riding with people, really providing the engagement and trying to bring Cykelfrämjandet closer to the mountain bikers and make them understand all the work that we're actually doing on the behalf of the mountain bikers. So this is sort of the situation in Sweden. Try to describe it. We have approximately like 500,000 mountain bikers in Sweden. And that is the number that we have from the Swedish Nature Conservancy Agency like 5-6 years ago. They put up the number. And I think it's important to say, as Kevin mentioned before in the session before, most of them probably don't see themselves as mountain bikers. When being asked, do you ride a bike on trails? Most of them say yes, because that's part of their outdoor recreative behavior. But probably most of them wouldn't recognize themselves as mountain bikers per se. So what we're doing, we have the right to roam in Sweden, and we are allowed to ride bikes within the right to roam. So that's one of the important missions that we do in Cykelfrämjandet, is to make sure that that right to roam for us as mountain bikers will remain. I wouldn't say it's strongly threatened, but there definitely is some stakeholders that are not interested in having mountain bikers on the trails. So there are some work to do there, and have the community to understand that, and to have bikers being good advocates for mountain biking when they're out riding. And then we have actually quite a lot of really cool and good bike parks around Sweden. We also have some regions that actually are doing quite a good work and have sort of a knowledge that mountain biking is something we should work with. And we found this data. We did sort of a screening report for, what's it called? The National Growth Agency 2 years ago. They wanted to know how high is the level of knowledge out in the country when it comes to working with mountain biking, which is sort of really broad topic to narrow it down. But there we sort of found out areas where people actually are working with it and trying to find out the knowledge. And from that, we had some reports that gave us really good input on how people are working with mountain biking and where the level of knowledge is out in the municipalities, from the professional trail builders, from the bikers, etc. And it was also sort of interesting to see how different people looking at each other. When like you're asking a trail builder, do the customer know what a good trail is? So they said no. And then you ask the customer, that is the municipality, do you know what you're ordering? And they say yes. But that's not the topic for today. But that's just showing us a little bit of how broad we're working to trying to promote mountain biking in Sweden. So we have several reports helping municipalities understand mountain biking and mountain bikers how to behave within the right to roam. And then we have sort of this more professional reports towards municipalities, trail builders, giving them guidelines on how to work and how to work in a professional way to have all the permissions and etc. in place. So going back to my work together with this project where I met a lot of people within the outdoor sector and the hiking industry, I did a webinar where the sort of the seed of my envy grew. And there was a lot of interesting reports that was presented there. And you could really see that there was loads of different scientific reports looking into different sports and to different outdoor sectors. But we really never saw mountain biking coming up in numbers, even though mountain biking is recognized as one of the biggest outdoor activities. But we still don't have the reports there. And then they showed a report that was called Sustainable Skiing Facilities that actually, the way they presented that was exactly the way that we have talked about trails close to home for years. So this is not like the big alpine skiing. This is how you can provide each municipality with a ski slope, because the need for inhabitants to have ski slopes close. And with the climate change, that means you have to work with artificial snow. And so they sort of felt a sort of pressure that we need to show that we can do this in a sustainable way, to have municipalities investing more into ski slopes close to home. And I thought exactly that report is something that I want, but for trails close to home, we really need that. And then when they showed me further on this presentation, this is a really crappy picture here because you can't see it. You will have the whole presentation afterwards. But they show this diagram where they put like different type of ski slope or Nordic cross-country skiing facilities in comparison with a soccer field, an ice hockey hall, swimming pool, and just like a hiking trail. And that's where I saw we definitely need to have mountain bike trails in this presentation, because this company, Ecoloop, they're doing those presentation and webinars for all the municipalities in Sweden. They're providing like the information that lays ground for the decisions. Where should we spend our money? And I was quite sure if we had the same report for mountain bike trails, we would have quite good numbers in the comparisons, which sort of would help us have more decisions taking in favor of having more trails. So that was sort of the whole idea of having this report done. And it's done by a given frame. This company has done this on so many different sport facilities. So the engineering part of how they're doing the maths, I really can't give you that description. But it's really narrowed down to how you build a facility and how you maintain it. So you add the cost of building and maintaining, and you use like fixed numbers on different parts. So you don't take in the conclusion how the traveling to the facility or the gear or the equipment you use. So it's just the facility itself. So by example, we know that traveling to the sport facilities is like the biggest problem when it comes to CO2 emissions, for example. That's not within it. So it's just like a construction sort of model math, yeah. And that's why we had the engineers doing it. And this is the company then. And they presented themselves as like engineers. They're doing not only sport facilities, they're actually doing more for like companies trying to bring new products to the market with the argument that this is good for the environment. So they have a lot of knowledge in different areas how to bring new products to the market and give good data on explaining why this is a better solution in creating a more sustainable society. But they also, during a couple of years, have worked more towards sustainable sports, and that's where they did all those data on other sport facilities. So when I reached out to them after this presentation, and they sort of presented, they actually had not only in it for the money, I actually sense they did it by heart. They actually believe in a more sustainable society, and they really thought that more sustainable sport facilities is something that we really can provide the society with. And so I sort of felt that they were really engaged in this as well. So we had like initial meetings on how this could work and how we could do something similar for mountain bike trails. And in that meeting, we had to think about how can we bring in funding for this whole project, because they're doing it by heart, but they're not doing it for free, of course. And we also thought about what stakeholders do we need to bring with us to provide them with the right information to do a good report. And also, what knowledge do they need to gain to do a good report? And that was not too easy. You don't have to, so they just came up with an idea. We did like a promotion brochure that they sent out to their network. I think they had like 2,000 people working in different municipalities, etc., where they sent it out. We want to do this report. Is there anybody out there that would like to help us with the funding or can help us? After 1 week, I got a little bit like, I want to continue. So I emailed these regions because I was good contact. I thought it would be good for you to be with us in this. So within 2 weeks, they actually had made all the funding. So it actually only took 3 mails. You didn't have to do all this work. But then we sort of start the work with the report. And the first thing was explain to Ecoloop that a trail is a sport facility. I think at the beginning they were like, yeah, I understand a pump track. I can see like a flow trail in a bike park. But then I was like, well, yes, we need that as well, but we need the recognition of a trail. It might look like a natural trail that had been there forever, but this is a man-made trail. And all the values it brings to us in the society, we need the recognition of that. And it didn't take too long for them to understand, but it wasn't clear for them at all. And I also had to talk them through, since they were not mountain bikers, all the different type of riding behaviors that we can see on the trails, therefore different type of facilities providing us with these experience. And we also had to have a long discussion on how trail build. So this is from the dirt material, everything from rake and ride to high engineered trails. I wanted it all to be covered. I wanted like numbers from each part of those. And for them, it was like, it took a little while for them to understand how like diverse the scene of mountain bike trails and therefore sport facilities are. But actually they coped quite quickly with that. And when they have done that, we actually had them coming with us in a trail building school we did as well. So they were out there digging with us for 2 days and better understand how nature works and how much work there can be behind a trail that looks natural. So they were really great to work with. And when we have done that, they said, now it's time for you to take a step back, and now it's time for us to just work with the model that we usually do. So from here on, this is more how they proceeded. And a key factor for them to do this report is that they needed accurate numbers. So they had to find different trail centers or bike parks that actually had numbers of how many people were riding and approximately for how long were people staying on each facility to know the numbers. Because all the comparison data is breaking down to activity per hour. That's how we can compare the different sport facilities and the cost and CO2 emissions. Otherwise, it will be kind of hard. So I was actually surprised that there were so many trail centers and bike parks close to Stockholm that actually were working with numbers. So they found out quite quickly that we had like 5 mountain bike facilities pretty close to where they were based that they could start working with. And once they have recognized those, they sort of broke down how does these facilities look like, how much of percentage is rake and ride build trail, how much is, they didn't agree on, by the way, to have hand-built and machine-built as 2 categories, because in their model they saw it won't make much of a difference. So it doesn't really make sense to do that like as 2 separate numbers. But on import build, they saw that's like a pretty big difference. So that's are sort of the 3 categories they had on these different. And then they had the hours that people were using them. They also was how they were built. Most of the cases they had hired a contractor or a professional trail builder to build these trails. There was one occasion where the municipality actually had built the facility themselves. And then also sort of the idea, the catchment area, I'm not sure if that's the right word, but that's the purpose of the area from where do you want people to come in? Is it just a local trail area, or is it like a touristic trail area where you want people to come in from far? And then also how the responsibility of the facility was afterwards. And there were different models, and that comes into account the price of the maintenance. They had like fixed numbers, but it does make a difference if you have people hired at the municipality or if it's like a volunteer crew doing the work. But even though if it was a volunteer crew, you put a price on the work and the hours they put down into it. Which gave us these numbers of the total investment of the trail area or bike park they had. And then they broke it down depending on, what's it called? The accounting model when you're putting away the price. So you divide it on, the number of years you think you can have the facility, which I'm not sure I totally agree with the model, because I think you need to do a little bit more maintenance on most of these trail facilities. You can't really rely on them being there for 40 years just by annual maintenance work. But we had to do it that way to make comparable data. And to be honest, if you look at some of the swimming pools or sport facilities, they don't do any maintenance on them either. So, I mean, maybe it's fair. And then we have the operational costs per year. There was like an assumption from the one doing the stewardship, which gave us sort of a total cost per year of the different type of facilities. And then they did the same when it came to CO2 emissions, but I trust on that. I feel comfortable with business administration and economics, but I'm not like engineering. So I didn't bring those numbers, because if you gave me a question, I couldn't answer it. So, but with the CO2, you could see that between the different sport facilities, there was some like minor difference between them, which is nothing when you put them in comparison to other sport facilities. So this is the different mountain bike facilities you see. And here we have like cross-country skiing facility, artificial snow, alpine skiing, ice hockey rink, swimming pool, a riding stable, an indoor hall, a football field with artificial. So this was exactly the numbers I was looking for. It feels awesome when someone's giving it to you, because it really shows that there is actually something in there with mountain biking. And having these numbers presented for people taking decisions, not by us that had the interest, but from others, it's pretty cool. And then if we look at the cost, the actual monetary cost, that really doesn't make sense. That like, that's if many people are using them, it's like average amount of people using them, and if a low, So I mean, I'm not sure you really need it, to be honest. I mean, the difference is the same, but it looks good on the chart. So, and the same type of chart for the cost of the facilities. There we can see there is actually a bigger change between the different facilities. It comes down to how they're built and how much cost, and also what type of trail center it is. Is it just for locals, or how many people coming in, and how long are they staying in this facility? I think the one here with the most cost is sort of 2K-ish flow trail close to home, which probably means that people won't spend very much time. They will probably go out ride some other trails as well, which gives us this number. But once again, when we take it in comparison with other sport facilities, the numbers are just great in favor for us. And so with this report and these numbers on the report, we took the next step, and that was to use the collaboration with all the partners for this report. They helped us to do like a webinar about this report, and this is also something I think was awesome with this project, is having them doing the webinar about this report. I think we had like 90 people attending this webinar about this report, and for me, I would say 50 of them were people that I didn't recognize. that were out on the municipalities taking decisions about sport facilities that I had never reached out to otherwise. And I think that was one of the coolest things with this report, and the whole idea of having someone presenting the numbers you want and just standing a bit in the background gives you, it's a good feeling, to be honest. And that leads me to sort of the end of this, sort of 5 conclusions from this approach, so to say, if this is an approach how you can do advocacy. I mean, this collaboration, bringing in different stakeholders, it really helped us spreading the message of it, and also having them asking for the report, because once it was done, those that were funding, as I mentioned, these 3 regions that had like 70 municipalities, they were really eager to have this report and to start communicating to all their municipalities because they want more trails to happen. And that is also cool when you sort of feel the pressure. People want the things you provide them with. And also I think it was a real good thing to use a tested model. We didn't invent something ourselves. We used something that the municipality used to take their decision, and we just got our numbers into it. I think that was a really big win for us. We could have done something similar, but without the comparisons, it's sort of what's the use of it. And also, for me as a trail builder, I sometimes feel embarrassed when we're providing like really expensive trails. But after this report, that's just ridiculous. I mean, even the most expensive trail that we build is still super competitive towards other sport facilities. And I think that's also something we can take with us. And also, like, that's actually adding value for the residents in the municipality, even though you provide them with high-end trails. As I said, having others advocate for your cause, it feels awesome. Take a step back and just see it happen. And the last conclusion, I mean, mountain biking is a good thing. I mean, we knew it, but we know it even better now, I guess. So that was pretty much my presentation. On one hand, you didn't understand anything because you didn't ask any question. On the other hand, I did it good. So we're probably at the point where you can just ask questions. So thank you very much.